Great things about running a telemarketing or a telesales team is that all the activity is completely quantifiable. And certainly, therefore, my view is if you're doing activity yourself, let's say you're self-employed and you're doing some prospecting calls, I think it's a great idea to record your numbers and understand a little bit about how you achieve the results you achieve. If you're running a telephone team, if you're employed to do that, or that is an integral part of your role, then of course you'll naturally be looking to monitor the people you have working for you. So certainly my view is measure, monitor, motivate, the 3 M's. As I say, the great thing about any form of outbound phoning is that you can count everything. And my view is there are 4 key measures, 4 things that we need to measure when we're managing a telephone team. The first one is the total number of dials that somebody makes over a period of an hour or a day or a month. And I would generally then divide that by the number of hours that they're phoning for. So that allows you, for instance, to compare part-time staff with full-time members of staff. And if somebody does 100 calls over a 5-hour period, then of course that means they're doing 20 dials or 20 calls per hour. It does depend on your market sector, of course, to some degree, but I would generally say in most B2B markets, you can probably make somewhere between 10 to 20 calls per hour if you're fairly organised and into the rhythm of it. So that's the first measure then, dials or calls per hour. Now, that is only a measure of raw activity. It doesn't tell you anything about the quality, it doesn't measure your success rate, but it does at least give you a measure of raw activity. If you've got a couple of people in your phone team and one's making 7 dials an hour and one's doing 14 and a half or 14, let's keep them as simple, then of course the person doing 14 dials an hour, all other things being equal, will be expected to do twice as many as the person making 7 calls an hour. So if the person making the low dial rate is struggling, then the first thing it gives you the opportunity to do is to encourage them to up their call rate. The second measure I think is important to track is the number of decision makers that each person or you get through to. Because of course you can't sell or achieve a positive result with anybody on the phone unless you are at least talking to the right person. So those we call decision maker presentations. So you're talking about your company, you're presenting something to the person you want to talk about. DMPs, decision makers per hour. So again, let's just consider if you make, 10 or 15 calls in an hour, you might perhaps get through to 2 or 3 of the right people per hour. You might do 2 or 3 decision maker presentations out of your 10 to 15 calls per hour. And those are your sales opportunities, of course. They're the ones where, if you have the right conversation, you can perhaps, hopefully, achieve the result that you're after. The third thing we tend to measure when monitoring telephone-based teams is the conversion rate. Now, your conversion rate is the number of times you achieve the desired results. That could be an appointment if you're telemarketing, for you perhaps, or for somebody, one of your field-based colleagues, or it could be a sale if you're in a telesales role. But it's on how many calls where you're through to the decision maker do you achieve the desired outcome. So as I say, it could be appointments, it could be sales. And again, for the sake of simplicity, let's say over a given period, let's say over the course of a week, perhaps you get through to 100 decision makers. If you get sales out of 5 of them, then of course that means your conversion rate is 5%. Admittedly, this doesn't take into account any degree of value, but you could argue that any one sales opportunity in one is one sales opportunity, regardless of whether it's for tuppence or £1 million. So that's the third one, conversion rate. The fourth rate we tend to measure when monitoring phone teams is the output per hour. So if you're employing people to phone for you, you will certainly be very interested in knowing what their overall output is per hour for every hour that you're paying them to sit there. So again, this will generally be appointments or sales per hour of employment. So those are the 4 measures. Make sure you keep a track of them. So that's dials per hour. That gives you an idea about raw activity. Decision makers per hour, that was the second one we talked about, to some degree gives an idea about skill and determination in getting through to the right person. The third one is all about sales skill. So if you have 100 customers that you manage to speak to, how many of those do you convert through to the desired outcome? So that is all about closing, and that's a measure of sales skills. And then the fourth one, to some degree, the output per hour, is all about your effectiveness, or is a measure of efficiency. So those are the four measures. I wish you luck, but pop over to the To Market website and have a look if you want further advice on running telephone-based teams.